All right, take a step closer in if you don't mind, and a little bit behind. Just a step backwards, please. All right, here we go, and 3, 2, 1. Welcome into Gerald Ford Stadium with Keith Mills of the Navy Radio Network. I'm Luke Slaybaugh. As Navy football gets ready to kick off against SMU. Keith, the vibe here.
Yeah, strange, isn't it?
I feel like we're at the library.
We're at church right now, the Church of Gerald Ford. It's Gerald Ford Stadium, of course, former President of the United States from Dallas. And this is an odd scenario. Now they're just starting to pump in a little bit of sound here. They must have heard you, Luke. When we walked in, it's like completely silent. You know, at Navy Marine Corps Stadium, there's a lot of music. Fans aren't in yet because it's still relatively early, but it'll be interesting. It'll be fired up, though, during kickoff because there is a lot at stake in this game, as you well know.
I would not, first, before we move on, I would not be a good historian and journalist if I did not tell you that it is not that Gerald Ford. It is a different Gerald J. Ford.
I understand. I understand that.
Investment banker.
Yes, investment banker.
Was that a
man.
joke? Have you seen Office Space?
I've always said that, and I know it's absolutely. Yeah, of course it is. But again, it's still that this is a very affluent area that we're in right outside downtown Dallas. SMU, one of the more prestigious colleges in the country, and they've got a lot to play for today. They win today, they get a spot in the American Athletic Conference Championship game against Tulane. Obviously, if Navy wins, they are bowl eligible for the first time since 2019.
Yes, and Coach Brian Newberry laid out the stakes at the beginning of the week, telling the team, we've got to send SMU out of this conference the right way. And what better way to do it? 3 touchdown dogs against the Mustangs and everything on the line here. How focused do you think this team's going to be heading up?
No question about it. Unbelievably focused. You could actually see it on the plane yesterday when we flew here, on the bus today when we came over to the stadium. Laser focus. How that translates to the game, we'll see, because it's going to be a major, major challenge. SMU ranked 25th in the country. They have firepower on offense led by quarterback Preston Stone, a sophomore Stone, for 25 touchdowns. As Coach Brian Newberry said, they can run at you, they can throw the ball short, and they can throw it over your head. They've got a multiple array of weapons led by a tight end, R.J. Maryland, who's one of the best in the country, and their quarterback, Preston Stone. So this is a major test for this Navy defense today, but they have been rising to the occasion since Jump Street after the Notre Dame game. They've had 3 shutouts. The last one last week against East Carolina, and they're playing at a very high level.
The Navy defense has shown in back-to-back weeks that it can snuff out a quarterback who's performing at a high level. What's the key to getting that Stone today?
Yeah, you know, that's a great point. You got to get Preston Stone off his line, so to speak, though he can tuck it and run it. They got a really experienced veteran offensive line. It'll be really interesting to see how P.J. Volker, the Navy defensive coordinator, attacks this offense. You know, they've been really astute at picking their spots when they want to blitz. A lot of it has to do with what Colin Ramos and Will Harbor are playing at a ridiculously high level the last month and a half of this season, pretty much all year for that matter. You know, they disguise it really well. They shoot the gap. We've seen, obviously, Justin Reed give the defense a lot of energy in replacing Jacob Busick, Clay Cromwell, Daniel Bernard, if they can control the line of scrimmage like they've done. Give the linebackers a chance, Xavier McDonald, Luke Pierce a chance to get to Preston Stone today. It'll really help Navy's chances of getting them off the field and kind of keeping this score down.
Offensively, we haven't seen the consistency out of the midshipmen that some had hoped under first-year coordinator Grant Chestnut. However, today is really the last chance they have to prove that they can run and throw the ball effectively with Xavier Arlen at quarterback.
No question. Of course, Army waits 2 weeks from now. That is the holy grail of their season. But right now, it's busy. This is the game that they really have to focus on. And we've seen them do some really good things in the last couple of weeks with Xavier Arlen as their quarterback. But as Brian Newberry said this week, last week they were their own worst enemy. So, 6 penalties which set them back, 2 turnovers which basically kept the game kind of close. Navy won 10-0. Could have been a little bit more comfortable, but they got to get back to, again, doing what they're doing, and that is keep ahead of the chains, shorten down in distance, control the ball, control the clock, and do not turn the ball over. That has been an Achilles heel the entire season, as have pre-snap penalties, and just subtle things that we don't really see a lot from this Navy football team that's kind of hamstrung the last couple of weeks and try to sustaining drives on offense.
The saving grace of this offense has been 2 breakout stars, both from Pittsburgh, Alex Alex Tezka at fullback and Eli Heidenreich at the slot. What has led to their success so far this year?
Tough kids, tough Western Pennsylvania kids, know how to play football, well coached in high school. Came here without a whole lot of fanfare, to be bluntly honest with you, and they have played their way into, one, success on the field, and two, the coach's trust, which is really, really important, obviously, at this level. They have deceptive speed, especially Texas. You look at him, you say, how is he able to outrun these really quick defensive backs in this conference when it looks like they have the angle on him? He just explodes from one gear to the next. Eli Heidenreich can do a variety of things. He can run it, and as we've seen, he can catch it. Caught a couple of long touchdown passes this year, been a really trusted weapon for Xavier Arline since he's taken over at quarterback in terms of getting downfield and stretching the field in the passing games. Those two kids are just football players, man. Again, came out of Western Pennsylvania, high school teammates, and they just get after it. At running back, you would say defensive players get after it, but they get after it from the offensive skill position.
You got to hand it to the offensive line, battling through injuries, through bruises and nicks and pains throughout the last couple of weeks. Seen some fresh blood, like Hoke Smith playing either at center or at the guard position. What do you make of the line of scrimmage game against the Mustangs, who are giving up the fewest points in conference play?
Yeah, talk about their offense, their defense, just as stout. They are really stingy in regards to giving up yards offensively and giving up points, which is the obvious bottom line. Mike Petroff has also filled in on that offensive line. Javon Boughton went out a couple of weeks ago, which was a big loss because he was playing at a really high level. Obviously, senior Josh Pena, Sam Glover, Connor McMahon, who's battling 2 bad ankles right now and just gutting through every snap. Same with Josh. So those guys really, anytime Navy lines up in a football game, the offensive line is the key because their bread and butter obviously is running the ball, the option, the triple option. Now they've added a couple of more kind of RPO plays to that mix. Xavier's done a really good job of running that kind of scheme. Brian Newberry said he's done an outstanding job since coming in from playing slot back, transitioning to quarterback. So he missed a couple of reads last week, which happens, but if they can play a sustained offensive, if they can sustain their blocks offensively today against a really good front seven, they can give SMU some trouble.
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about the defense, how it needs to step up today. I don't know. I mean, look, here's something. The last 2 weeks, you have picked Alex Tezka and Colin Ramos to be your standout performers of the game. Your picks to click, so to speak. It's been easy.
Rayon Lane, I think 2 weeks ago, too. Yeah.
Rayon Lane as well. It seems like they're getting consistency out of the players that, broke out this year, that, had talent that they were high on, but the fans really had to wait and see that they would be consistent.
Yeah, Colin Ramos is a football player, man. Went to Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey, one of the great football schools, one of the great high schools on the East Coast of the United States. And he is just a football player. As Brian Newberry said this week, he's playing fast, he's playing smart, he understands the 4 levels of the defense that he tries to preach and teach, along with P.J. Volker, along with Will Harbor, the interior of that middle linebacking core. They're just playing at an all-conference level. And then you add Luke Pierce, who came in a couple of weeks ago and made an immediate impact, just a sophomore, and the senior, the wise man, I call him. He's the wise man, Xavier McDonald, the voice of just wisdom out there, but is also a tackle for loss machine throughout his senior year as well. So those 4 guys are kind of the glue. The offense, Bernyard, Cromwell, Justin Reed, Robinson comes in on pass downs, and then the secondary has been stout. Ray Lane, Andrew Duhart played well. Deshaun Peel played very well. Evan Givens has come on. Beatty Williams does some good things. So it's going to be a complete defensive unit today that's going to have to stop this. But Ramos and Harbor are the glue guys.
You mentioned Duhart at corner, and he really came in here this season. He needed some confidence. He needed some coaching up from his teammates. He was the most inexperienced there in that defensive backfield, and yet you start to see those strides that this could be setting up just a mammoth 2024 for him in particular. No
question. Great point. We've seen Ray Lane make the jump from his sophomore to junior year and all-conference performer. And Andrew has done just a fantastic job. He's taken on some really high-level wide receivers, matching them up one-on-one in crossing routes and down the field, and he hasn't blinked at all. You're going to give up an occasional play, but he has been stout, has an interception on the year as well. And I think right now P.J. Volker's not afraid to blitz a little bit, let those guys out on an island back there, he and Deshaun Peel, because they're holding up pretty well. Today, it'll be a major test. Rhett Lashley, their head coach, is a protege of the Gus Malzahn coaching tree. He played for him at quarterback at Arkansas. He was a big-time high school player in Arkansas, big-time college player, has a really great offensive mind. He's only in his second year here and has established SMU as one of the high-octane offenses in college football. Be interesting to see how long he stays here. Of course, they're going into the ACC, so that changes the game a little bit. But to stop this team today, it's all hands on deck. But Duhart, Mabidi Williams, Ray Lane, Deshaun Peel are going to have to bring their A game today.
The intangible elements of this game, we mentioned the final American Conference regular season game for SMU.
Yeah.
A couple days after Thanksgiving. Black Friday just came and went. We are less than 2 hours to kick off. Where are we at? It's 9:35 right now, so 85 minutes to kick off. I see no one in the stands here. This could be...
It'll be interesting. The stadium holds 30. We were guessing maybe you'll have 20 today without the kids in school. I know it's going to be difficult to maybe get them back sometimes. You know, it's hard to make it back here. But there is a lot at stake for them. I'll tell you what, you win the American Athletic Conference Championship this year, you know, you're in that mix, you know, that power, you know, that there's the Power Five, and we've heard a lot about it. And they're right there with going to a major bowl game. So this is a huge game for them. Obviously, a monster game for Navy as well. You want to go to another bowl, first one since 2019. It'll be interesting to see how the fans respond and how many come out today. It's hit or miss here. We've been here now 3 or 4 times for me since I've been broadcasting the games with Pete and Joe, and you never know what you're going to get. But I tell you what you're going to get is this SMU team coming out and being aggressive on both sides of the ball.
And imagine if they had stuck around longer in the American with the new 5+7 college football playoff model. The American could be one of the gateways to the playoff. Our program recognizes that pretty well here for Navy. They know what's at stake moving forward in these, for lack of a better term, group of 5 conferences.
Yeah, how about Navy being picked to finish last in the conference? Right now they got a 4-3 record in the conference. I think, you know, take last night Tulane beat Texas Arlington, so Texas Arlington drops back to second, tied for first. And Navy's right there, 4th place, I think. And hats off to Brian Newberry, Grant Chestnut, P.J. Volker, Derek Hall, the coaches of this football team, because they have done a tremendous job. I know you might say, well, the offense has struggled and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, that is true, but they have been blistered by injuries. Hey, they played 4 quarterbacks this year, not making excuses, but Grant Chestnut has also incorporated a kind of new look to this offense, which took some time for everyone to really understand and grasp, and it really still is a learning process for everybody involved. But I'll tell you what, man, these kids deserve a tremendous amount of credit. Had some struggles early. After the Air Force game, they did not blink, and they came out and they played their best football of the year. And if they could cap it off today, would be one of the big upsets in recent Navy history, nationally, I should say. I think they believe they can win this game. They can believe they can win every game. It'll be a real exclamation point going into the Army game for this program.
My first interview with Coach Newberry during spring ball, I said, hey, we're going to meet here late December. 9 months from now, the season will be over. What's the first thing we're going to talk about? And he said, I hope we talk about how proud we are of our kids and the progress we've made. And in the grand scheme of things, when we look back on 2023, regardless of what happens today and in the Army-Navy game, it'll be a year of progress. Just from a bottom line standpoint, the midshipmen did the most with what they had and the cards that they were dealt. There were some highs, there were some lows, but 5 wins and the opportunity to build more. Coach Newberry has said, and when a coach says, winning ball games is hard, it is. And it's the nuances that a first-time head coach gets. How do you establish a lead early? How do you come back when they kick you in the teeth? How do you take advantage of an early turnover? These are all situations that you don't know until you've actually jumped into them. But I think so far, 5 wins, 5-5 heading into this game. Yeah. The hard work speaks for itself.
No question about it. And 2 words describe every person that attends the Naval Academy. I don't care if they're a player or a student. It's tough and resilient. They are hit with things on a daily basis that very few collegiate athletes are. Throw in the pandemic 4 years ago that really kind of ripped this program apart from a personnel standpoint. A lot of high-level kids left. And they're still rebounding from it, to be bluntly honest with you. But the second half of this season, we have seen how they've dealt with adversity. They could have folded up the tent after Air Force. That was a deflating loss for everybody, but they did not. On the contrary, they dug in, they rebounded, they played their best football of the year. They looked each other in the eye and said, you know what, we're not going to place blame, we're not going to point fingers, we're just going to come out, trust everybody. win every practice snap, win every game snap we can, and try to be the best football team we have, and that's what they've done. These young men deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the quality and integrity of young men they are. Strip away their athleticism and football skill, and they are as good a group of young men as I've ever been around.
Final thoughts, what does Navy have to do to beat SMU?
You can't turn the football over. You can't shoot yourself in the foot, as Brian Newberry said this week, with penalties that set you back. You got to try to get off the field on third down. Obviously, limit the big play, which is always a challenge down here. Rashee Rice, who we see now playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, he was on this field the last couple of years. We saw what he can do. Connor Mordecai passed for 400 yards. They got some they reload down here. They got some skilled players that we'll probably see on Sundays in the NFL. They got some big offensive linemen that can play. But you know what? These guys from Navy are ready for the challenge, but you've got to almost play a clean, perfect game to win today, both offensively and defensively.
Underdogs don't win by chance. They expect to win. I'm picking Duhart and Heidenreich for my players to break out today.
I'll go with Justin Reed, who has been a machine. You talk about a guy playing with a high motor and high energy level. Watch number 94 today if you're home watching. This guy never ever stops until the whistle blows. So I'm going to go with Justin Reed on defense, and I'll go with Xavier Arline. He's got the ball in his hands. He's the key today.
Are you sure you're going to mix these up after 2-3 weeks in a row?
Man. I got to give Justin some love, man. He has been playing out of his mind since coming in for Jacob Busick when the senior co-captain went down a couple of months ago with an arm injury. And he has been more than advertised to go along with Daniel Bernard and Clay Cromwell, the two rocks of that defensive line, the seniors. Justin's got another year left, and I know the coaches are happy about that. And I tell you what, I don't know what's going to happen, but it won't be for lack of effort today, and specifically from number 94.
Full disclosure, were you pulling my leg on that Gerald Ford line?
I was, absolutely.
Keeping me on my toes, Millsy.
I made a mistake of saying that my first time here about 5-6 years ago, so absolutely.
Amazing.
I just wonder if you were up to the task.
It's early, but I had my coffee.
Central time here, so we're an hour behind the East, and you know.
This is the normal time zone for us Missourians.
Oh, that's right.
Eastern time zone is the fun time zone.
What do you think of Dallas?
Love it. I've been here. I used to work in Tulsa. I used to cover OU, so Mordecai when he was at OU.
Yeah.
This is familiar ground for us here. At,
my son's moving down here in a couple months, so he's going to be living about 5 minutes from here. So
does he need a roommate or?
He's got one. He's got a fiance. So.
Too bad. All right, he's Keith Mills of the Navy Radio Network. Be sure to tune into him. Keith and Joe, or Peter and Joe. Sorry, Pete Medhurst. Keith Mills, of course. I'm Luke Slaybaugh. Go Navy, beat SMU, and in a couple weeks, we're talking about how we're going to beat Army. Thanks, brother.
Good job, brother.
Appreciate it.
That was a good one, man.
Thanks. that Gerald Ford thing, that didn't throw you off? Okay.